Soul was released in 2020 during the height of the pandemic, which is ironic because this movie is about the beauty of living, yet released in a time when no one was allowed to live at all. A period of life that is still so surreal to even think about. That pandemic year had a lot of lows, but there was a personal high that I did achieve, a glimmer of happiness in a year of sadness and suffering. I released the most amount of videos ever in that year. A staggering 30 videos were uploaded to my YouTube channel, and to this day it is still the most I've ever uploaded, and that is an achievement that I'm very proud of because I put a lot of work into those videos, in hope that one day this hobby becomes a full-time job. And even though it is 7 years since my first upload, there is still this desire that what I do now, my outlet to be creative, will become more than just a passion project. Every time I upload, there is this belief that it could be that video that takes me to the promised land. It's an obsession that I love, but one that does drive me crazy at times because I constantly think about YouTube. I am always thinking about my next video or thinking about a current video I am working on. It is the spark in my life that gets me out of bed. But because of the enjoyment and happiness I get every time I upload, there is always this demon on my shoulder taunting me that this hobby will always stay a hobby and the life that I crave will never happen. This negativity has affected me before because I often wonder to myself, is what I create, these videos I craft and write and edit, is this considered art? And I know that is not that big of a deal and not really that important, but this feeling of self-doubt creeps in from time to time. I don't necessarily think it is my place to say whether what I create is or is not some type of art. That is for the audience to decide that. But that vulnerability does fill me with anxiety about whether I have wasted the past 7 years of my life on this. Questions that ponder in my mind whether the small to big sacrifices I've made for this channel is worth it. My dream will always be to make this a full-time job, because to have a job you can love is so important, as we will be working for so much of our life that all I want to be is happy whilst doing it. And this is that spark that makes me happy. This channel has become a way for me to express myself, to put my feelings out there and discuss topics that I would never have the courage to speak to with anyone, but here I feel safe to put myself out there, to speak openly and use the movies I watch to express how I truly feel. Because I've been consumed with YouTube and making videos, it has been the only thing that has been on my mind for such a long time. It became the only thing I truly ever thought about, the moment I wake up to the point I fall asleep at night.
Music is all I think about. From the moment I wake up in the morning to the moment I fall asleep at night.
This channel became my identity, which is a problem that I fully recognized when I finished watching Soul. Soul is about a middle-aged jazz player named Joe Gardner, and Joe loves jazz like how I love making YouTube videos, and just like Joe, we both have jobs that don't fulfill our goals, and day by day we are trying to make our desired future become reality. But what Soul teaches us is the danger of obsession, and that's not just with your hobbies or passion, but any type of obsession can lead you to getting lost. In the Soul dimension, we see that when people lose sight of the world and become consumed by a particular action, which could be anything such as work, then your soul is engulfed by this bad habit.
Some people just can't let go of their own anxieties and obsessions, leaving them lost and disconnected from life, and this is the result.
Even too much of a good thing can become harmful to you, showing when people who are in the zone, they can easily fall into that bad obsession.
The zone is enjoyable, but when that joy becomes an obsession, one becomes disconnected from life.
And this film reminds us that we must not be overtaken by our work, hobbies, or anything else that we forget that life offers much more. That is a lesson which is so moving, yet I forget this a lot. There is a part in the movie where Joe goes through his life with Soul 22 and he becomes saddened by what he sees. All he witnesses is the mundane life he has lived, watching TV, eating alone in a diner, and this highlights to him that he has not lived to his purpose.
My life was meaningless.
A turning point in his life was when his dad takes him to a jazz bar and he lays eyes on a pianist as he jams to his heart's content, which became the spark in Joe's life that he has to be a jazz player as well. I had a similar moment in my life when I watched a YouTube video by Cinema Cartography, previously known as Channel Chriswell, as he broke down Taxi Driver. It was a 45-minute video, and it was at that point that I knew I wanted to talk about my love for film. Similar to Joe, I began obsessing over this new spark in my life. It gave me a sense of purpose, and from that day it has led me here 7 years later, still trying to put out videos. That one video inspired me to create these videos where people would watch them, and it was and still is really exciting. 7 years of trying to fulfill my purpose in life. But just like Joe, still nowhere near that, nowhere near the ending I want, and I understand that this goal of mine is not as important as someone wanting to be a doctor or carer or any other job, but this passion is all I really know and love doing. I became like those lost souls who got way too consumed, wandering the abyss alone, and I forgot to live. This movie laughs at the idea of the meaning of life and purpose, and I needed to hear that message, because life isn't about your purpose.
A spark isn't a soul's purpose. Oh, you mentors and your passions, your purpose is your meanings of life. So basic.
Life isn't about reaching fame status or leaving a legacy, something Joe was frightened he can never achieve.
I'm just afraid that if I died today, that my life would have amounted to nothing.
Life is about everything: a conversation, a meal, meeting new people, and reconnecting with old friends. Life is crying one day and laughing hysterically the next. Life is having lazy days to being the most productive you've ever been the following day. Life is about accepting that life itself is limited and there is an ending. But the most important thing is not the story finishes, it is that you experience the journey of that story. You may not feel it now, but when time does catch up, you will look back and cherish those small moments way more than the big ones. Those late night conversations, those summer walks, and those smiles you had when you were around the people you love. I have for a long time struggled with what my purpose is in life, and I can guarantee you all have as well. What is the meaning of life is probably the most asked question, because we all want to know where all this leads. But that is the beauty of life. Because we don't know, we shouldn't worry about the end and start to enjoy the journey, to start to enjoy the story you are writing now. Soul takes you on a ride about how the journey is more important than the end result.
I heard this story about a fish. He swims up to this older fish and says, "I'm trying to find this thing they call the ocean." "The ocean," says the older fish, "that's what you're in right now." "This," says the young fish, "this is water. What I want is the ocean."
A story about how passions are only part of who you are and that life isn't about just one pathway. Soul is a story about how your spark is not your purpose.